Hello and good evening, everybody. This is Rainer from Rainier Books. It's time for another Tuesday sum up in this case, about the things that I've read, the things that I'm reading, the things that are going around in the world and around in my head, and just give you an update about everything. So let's get started. First, winter has come back. It's cold. It's not very cold up here in Sweden, in Stockholm, in the Stockholm region. It's about -2, -3 degrees, and tomorrow they have said it's going to be +7 again. So the snow that we have outside that fell last night, that snow is going to melt away. And what better to melt the snow away with also a glass of Japanese whiskey while doing a YouTube video. And what I'm drinking tonight is, please sponsor me, Tanjaku whiskey from Japan. Beautiful whiskey. And I say cheers. Delicious. Tanjaku from Japan. Tanjaku from Japan. So now to the reads. I'm currently reading two novels, two chunky ones, two novels with more than 450 pages, I think, each one of them. First one is, first book that I want to talk about is a book that was published in March this year, in the beginning of March. It was a long expected read for me, a long expected book. After I have read her novel In the Kitchen, I was waiting for another one to come, and finally it is here. After 10 years of silence novel-wise, there is a new novel by Monica Ali from the UK, and this is Love Marriage. A book with 400, almost 500 pages about, I've started reading this, I'm in on page 35 right now, which is not far, I admit, but nevertheless I got a very good impression of this novel. This is building up to something I'm going to like, I know that. And this is building up to a possible 4, maybe even 5-star read, because Monica Ali knows how to write, and I knew that after I read The Kitchen. And this is a book about Joe and Jasmine and their families. Joe is an English, an all-English doctor, and Jasmine is the daughter of Indian immigrants to the UK. And this book sort of slowly builds up towards the upcoming wedding, the upcoming marriage of Joe and Jasmine. And Jasmine's parents are going to Joe's mother's house to discuss the wedding, and that's pretty much where I am. And there's one beautiful sentence that I already want to quote to you. They're sitting together, the parents and the children that are going to marry, and then the mother, Harriet, Joe's mother, says, "The liberal who feels guilty about the social, political or economic order, global or local, who knows that their comfort and ease depend on the blood, sweat and tears of others, is the enemy of change in the world. You know why?" "We will in a minute," said Joe. Jasmine adored the way he teased Harriet. She rather envied it as well. Shaukat, she knew this without reading to test it, would not tolerate such a thing, and Ma was immune to all forms of irony. "Hush, you revolting child," said Harriet, rising. She was sheathed. I have to look that word up, as usual, in something black and irreproachable. When she paused to wrap her arms around Joe's neck and plant a kiss on his head, her triceps were advantageously displayed. Quote now, "Liberal guilt is the acknowledgement that the cushy number is just too damn good to give up. It says, well, I haven't actually done anything wrong, but I'm a good person, so I feel bad. It's the byproduct of an acceptance of the world as it is. I'll open another bottle of that Malbec so it can breathe." I love that. That is Love Marriage. It's very promising and I like it. I'm going to continue reading this. Definitely book by Monica Ali. The next one is a book that I'm not allowed to say so much about because I have this buddy read with Jolene from Canada. She has her beautiful channel, Bookworm Adventure Girl, that I really recommend to you. It's growing fast right now and it's growing so very well deserved so. And since she's Canadian, she was probably tempted to read a book called Canada by an American author, Richard Ford. It's on our back list, on both of our back lists. It's from 2012. Richard Ford, born in 1945, Pulitzer Prize winning author, I think, for the sports writer, is writing this book. And I have come also a little bit into that novel. It's 41 pages in for me out of 420 approximately. And this develops very well. It's also a book that I really would compare to Monica Ali's novel with great pleasure. I'm reading this with great pleasure right now. It's the story of a twin siblings growing up in Great Falls, Montana, which is a beautiful landscape in the big sky country of America with that border line to Canada. And the narrator, a young man, is telling the story of his parents who came to this town with the military. Father worked for the military. The mother is from a well-educated Polish immigrant family, and they are living in Great Falls, Montana, and they were actually not made for each other, and everything seemed to be looking like they're going to get a divorce. But then something happened, and it hasn't happened yet in the book, but we know that it has happened because it is explained already, or it's mentioned already on the first pages. And this is that the parents of these two siblings have robbed a bank. And the story leading up to this bank robbery seems to be the story of this book called Canada. Great storytelling. I think I also have a quote from this novel for you, where the narrator is describing the parents of his mother, his grandparents. He says, "They were old, rigid, conservative, intellectual people who'd saved their own lives at a bad time and wanted life to be predictable." It's a very good and short description, I think, of two characters. Great character depiction, great storytelling. Canada by Richard Ford. I'm looking forward for the rest of this book. These are the two novels that I'm reading currently, and I have more, of course. I have started what I told you in my video about the Women Prize nominees, the 10, or I think the more than 10, 16 novels that are nominated for the Women's Prize. I said that the final revival of Opal and Nev by Dawnie Walton is my favorite book, the book that most interests me from that list. And I got it here from the library in Stockholm. And I read 20 pages into that book. It's not that I would say I'm going to DNF it. Probably not. I'm probably reading on after Canada and after Love Marriage. But I'm not so enthusiastic about it anymore. I'm really a little bit disappointed because it has the same... Because I thought this is a story about music, about popular music in the United States and about actors on that stage of rock and roll and jazz and punk. In this case, I think it's a black punk queen, Opal, who is and a British songwriter, Nev, who are the main characters of that book. But the way the story is told seems to be, after 20 pages at least, exactly the same way Taylor Jenkins Reid has used for her beautiful novel Daisy Jones and the Six, by letting several voices that belong to the band members, belong to relatives, the sisters and siblings and everything, let them speak in very short snippets in that novel. That's exactly the way Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote her novel. So I'm really a little bit disappointed, but I give it a second chance after I finish Canada and Love Marriage, I promise. But the library is so good here in Stockholm. Today, they sent me for another 2 books. They said, please pick up these 2 books, and there's one more from the women's list. The second book of 3 books that are really interesting me. The book probably that's interesting me most is a book that I own, and that is The Island of Missing Trees by Alif Shafak, about Cyprus, about siblings in Cyprus who emigrated to England, about the demarcation line, about the splitting of Cyprus into the Turkish and to the Greek part, and very poetically written first chapter. I read something for you in the video about the Women's Prize. But here is the second book that is also very interesting to me, after the description, and it's about Vietnamese immigrants in the United States. This is by Violet Kupersmith. It's called Build Your House Around My Body. That arrived today, actually, from the library here in Farsta. Two young women go missing decades apart. Both are fearless, both are lost, and both will have their revenge. Very interesting. Then, in April, the British and the American edition of Jennifer Egan's new novel Candy House will be published. And I'm actually waiting for the British one to be published. The American version of the book was published yesterday in the United States and even in Europe. It's available in Europe. The British book has the more beautiful cover, and that will be published on April 28th. So I've decided to wait for the British or the American, I don't know, for the other one, for the other cover. I'm looking it up. And I wait for the more beautiful cover to buy Jennifer Egan's book, and that will be published on April 28 of 2022. Candy House, it's called, and it's set to be a great novel about our time, social media, about the internet, and with Jennifer Egan's special ability to write a very good intellectual story. But in order to be able to read that when it comes then, in the beginning of May somehow, I will have to read another book by Jennifer Egan. And I don't know anything about this one, but it's called A Visit to the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. It has a guitar, the head of a guitar on the cover, which suggests that it might be also about music. I don't know anything. Really? Here it says, Jennifer Egan's spellbinding, interlocking narratives circle the lives of Benny Salazar, an aging former punk rocker and record executive, and Sasha, the passionate, troubled young woman he employs. Although Benny and Sasha never discover each other's past, the reader does, in intimate detail, along with the secret lives of a host of other characters whose paths intersect with theirs over many years in locales as varied as New York, San Francisco, Naples, and Africa. By Jennifer Egan. A Visit from the Goon Squad was published by Alfred A. Knopf, or K. Knopf, as they say in the US, in 2011. That was 11 years ago. And now the Candy House takes up a bunch of characters that are figuring in this book. So that's why I want to read A Visit from the Goon Squad before I read Candy House. So much about books. I'm also reading, of course, I'm reading other stuff. The world around me. Hey, let me tell you about COVID. Many people wrote in the comments and said, get well soon, and expressed their thoughts. And I thank you very much for doing so. I was really, really lucky, I think, because I am not old, but I'm older. I'm male, and I have some kilos too much. So I was thinking that when I get the virus, I might be in a certain danger to get a more serious version of it. But now the Omicron, probably BA2 that I got, that my daughter got, was not so dangerous because we made it quite good through it. I'm pretty much back to normal now. I have no repercussions, nothing. My daughter is also getting better, and I think tomorrow or the day after tomorrow she will be fine as well. So we were lucky, but we also know, I read a study from the Imperial College London that was published, I think, last week, London Imperial College, that it's possible to get reinfected only probably after 2 months after this infection. So we still have to be careful, even if people the countries are everywhere, they are sort of getting rid of their mask mandates. Even in Germany, to get rid of the mask mandates, they can sort of reinstall them when in so-called hotspots when it's dangerous. But we get rid of mask mandates, but still we have a very high number of infections. And I think that I will be very careful even because of the infection, because I don't want to get it again. I have no idea to get it again. It's not necessary, really not. And you don't know what happens. And Delta is still around. And today I heard even Alpha is still around somewhere. So there's a mixture of viruses going around. We have no testing in Sweden. We have no masks. We have nothing at all. The people who get into the hospital, they get tested, but anyone else who is walking around the streets. And people are even outside with symptoms, I'm very sure. Sometimes you hear people cough, sometimes you see people sneeze and stuff like that, but they still attempt public transport without wearing a mask. So that's that corona. I'm okay again, and I'm able to read again. That's beautiful. We have to talk about the war as well, about the special military operation, as they call it in Russia. Because I read 2 essays that I would love you to read as well. I want to inspire you to read them. And the best essay probably was published on March 22, the best of the 2. And this is they're both written by the Atlantic staff writer and Pulitzer Prize winning author Anne Applebaum. And the one from March 22 is called Ukraine Must Win. And this is an essay where Anne Applebaum talks very much for the fact that Ukraine is fighting for all of us, and that democracy is at stake, not only in Ukraine, but everywhere around the world. This is a horrible war with atrocities, with genocidal tendencies, where women got raped, where we have seen the horrible pictures of Bucha, northwest of Kiev, northwest of the capital, with murders, rapes, committed by Russian soldiers, where war crimes are being investigated already. And all of this together shows that Ukraine must win this. There's no way, if Ukraine loses, we will all lose our way of living and our free and liberal world. There's another essay by Anne Applebaum that she published on Sunday that it's about liberalism and the danger in which liberalism is. I really want you to read that, because it's so important to be aware of what happens in the world and what happens in our countries. I mean, look what happens in the US, where voter rights in a lot of states have been changed for the worse since 2020. We're still dozens of millions of Americans believe in the big lie that the election of President Joe Biden was staged, was manipulated. War is peace, and peace is war. Freedom is slavery, and slavery is freedom. All these expressions are being turned around, and our world is really in turmoil. And that's also, of course, something that engages hopefully each and every one of us. And Ukraine is is every day in my thoughts. And a friend of mine actually yesterday, she told me that she tries on each and every day now, she tries to do something that will or could contribute in a very small meaning that Ukraine will win. Let Ukraine win. That's my plea for today. Ukraine must win, because Ukraine must win this for all of us. Otherwise, we are all lost. And we have to help Ukraine even more, and even more dedicated than we have done before. So thank you very much for watching this video. I continue reading Richard Ford, I continue reading Monica Ali, and I will come back to you with some results on these books. And also, don't forget, Kehinde Andrews is still on my radar. I'm slowly reading his book, The New Age of Empire, and I will come with a more detailed review of that book also in the next weeks. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that you are all right. Stay safe, and I see you soon. Bye-bye.